At 37,000 feet over the black Atlantic, Logan Pierce had exactly 90 seconds to decide whether to tell his 7-year-old daughter the truth, that the screaming alarms in the cockpit meant they were all about to die. The captain was unconscious, the co-pilot was 23 and hyperventilating, and Logan, the exhausted single father in seat 14A who hadn't touched aircraft controls in 6 years, was the only person on this plane who knew how to fly through a storm that had already killed the hydraulics. He looked at Emma's terrified face. Then he stood up. Like this story and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale has traveled. The boarding gate at Chicago O'Hare smelled like burnt coffee and anxiety. Logan Pierce stood near the windows with Emma's small hand gripped tightly in his, watching ground crews load luggage onto Atlantic Airways Flight 447. His daughter pressed her face against the glass, breath fogging the window as a 777 roared past on the taxiway. "Daddy, is our plane that big?" "Bigger," Logan said, though he wasn't really paying attention. His eyes tracked the fuel trucks, the catering vehicles, the wing walkers guiding aircraft into position. Old habits. Muscle memory from another life. Emma tugged his sleeve. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "The pilot thing." She wrinkled her nose. "Mom said you used to—" "Your mom said a lot of things." The words came out sharper than he intended. He softened his voice. "Come on, they're boarding." They joined the slow shuffle of passengers filtering through the jet bridge. Logan carried a single backpack, and Emma's purple roller suitcase covered in stickers from places they'd never actually visited. London would be their first real trip since Sarah died. 3 years of barely scraping by, working construction jobs and overnight security shifts, living in a cramped apartment where the heat only worked half the time. This trip was supposed to fix things. Emma had stopped talking to him. Really talking. She'd answer questions with shrugs, spend hours alone in her room, flinch slightly when he tried to hug her. Her second-grade teacher had pulled him aside last month, using careful words like emotional distance and grief processing. So Logan had done something stupid. He'd maxed out his last credit card for 2 tickets to London because Emma once said she wanted to see Big Ben like the girl in her favorite book, because he was desperate, because he didn't know what else to do. The flight attendant at the door smiled that professional airline smile. "Welcome aboard." Logan nodded and kept moving. Seat 14A and 14B, window and middle. He let Emma take the window, watching her eyes go wide as she looked down at the wings stretching out beneath them. For a moment, she almost smiled. "Can you see the engines from here?" "Yeah," Logan said, settling into the middle seat. "Those are the GE9s, most powerful jet engines ever made." Emma looked at him strangely. "How do you know that?" "I just do." She went quiet again, turning back to the window. Logan closed his eyes and tried not to think about the last time he'd sat in an airplane. Tried not to remember Sarah in the seat beside him, laughing at something stupid he'd said, her hand warm in his. Tried not to remember the call from the hospital 6 weeks later. The cabin filled slowly. Business travelers in rumpled suits, a college kid with headphones, an older couple arguing quietly about whether they'd locked the front door. Normal people on a normal flight. Then she walked past. Logan didn't mean to notice, wasn't trying to, but something about the way she moved made him look up, confident, purposeful, scanning faces the way he'd been trained to scan rooms. She was younger than him, mid-20s maybe, wearing dark jeans and a leather jacket that looked expensive but worn in, black hair pulled back, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She paused at row 11, 3 rows ahead, and lifted a camera bag into the overhead bin with the kind of casual strength that suggested she did it often. A travel photographer, maybe. Or a journalist. Their eyes met for half a second. She smiled slightly, like she knew something he didn't. Then she sat down and pulled out her phone. Emma kicked the seat in front of her. "I'm hungry. They'll bring food after we take off." "What if I don't like it?" "Then you don't eat it." She made a face. "You're not fun anymore." Logan didn't have an answer for that. She was right. He used to be fun. Used to make Emma laugh until she couldn't breathe. Used to be the dad who invented elaborate bedtime stories and built blanket forts and taught her how to identify constellations through their apartment window. Now he was just tired. The cabin door sealed with a heavy thunk. The lead flight attendant started the safety demonstration that nobody watched. Logan pulled out the laminated safety card from the seat pocket anyway, studying the emergency exit locations, the flotation device instructions, the brace position diagram. Emma noticed. "Why do you always do that?" "Do what?" "Read that thing. Nobody reads those." "I do." "Why?" "Because 6 years ago, he would have been in the cockpit instead of seat 14A. Because he knew exactly how many things could go wrong at altitude. Because Sarah used to tease him about being paranoid, and then she died anyway, and now he couldn't stop cataloging every possible disaster. "Just in case," he said. The engine spooled up. The aircraft pushed back from the gate, and Logan felt the familiar rumble through the floor. Emma pressed her face to the window again as they taxied toward the runway, watching other planes queue up in the darkness. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "Are you scared of flying?" "No." "Then why do you look scared?" Logan glanced at her. Really looked. She was watching him with those eyes that saw too much, the same brown eyes Sarah had. 7 years old and already learning to read the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his mouth. "I'm not scared," he said quietly. "I'm just paying attention." The aircraft turned onto the runway. The engines roared. Acceleration pressed them back into their seats as the nose lifted and the ground dropped away beneath them. Emma gripped the armrest, but she was grinning now, genuinely grinning, and for a moment Logan let himself believe this trip might actually help. Chicago fell away below them, a sprawl of lights against the dark mirror of Lake Michigan. Then they were in the clouds. Then there was nothing but darkness and the steady drone of engines. 2 hours into the flight, Logan still hadn't relaxed. Emma had fallen asleep with her head against his shoulder, mouth slightly open, one hand clutching the stuffed rabbit she refused to admit she still needed. The cabin lights were dimmed. Most passengers were dozing or watching movies on their seatback screens. Logan stared at the ceiling, counting rivets. He knew this aircraft, Boeing 777-300ER, range of 7,800 miles, cruising speed of 0.84 Mach, ETOPS certified for extended overwater operations. He knew the redundancy systems, the backup generators, the RAT deployment sequence. He knew too much. His eyes drifted forward toward the cockpit door. Reinforced after 9/11, bulletproof, designed to keep people like him out. He wondered who was flying tonight, wondered if they were sharp or complacent, wondered if they were making the same mistakes he'd made the night he almost killed himself and everyone else on board because he was too arrogant to admit he was exhausted. That was the flight that ended his career. The flight that made him walk away from the only thing he'd ever been good at. Movement caught his eye. 3 rows ahead, the woman in the leather jacket, the photographer, stood and moved toward the back of the plane. She walked past without looking at him, but Logan noticed she'd left her camera bag in the overhead bin instead of under the seat. Trained habit. Professional equipment meant professional work. You didn't leave expensive gear unattended unless you were used to traveling with it. He was thinking too much again. Emma stirred against his shoulder. "Bathroom," she mumbled. "Can you wait?" "No." Logan sighed and unbuckled both their seatbelts. He guided Emma down the aisle toward the lavatories, past sleeping passengers and flight attendants preparing the meal service in the galley. The photographer was coming back the other direction. They nearly collided. "Sorry," Logan said, pulling Emma aside. The woman smiled. "No worries. Flying with kids is chaos." "You have experience?" "Not personally, but I've logged enough flights to know the look." There was something direct about the way she spoke. No small talk padding, just straight information. Emma tugged Logan's hand. "Daddy, I really have to go." "Yeah, okay." He nodded to the woman and kept walking. She watched him go. He felt it. Marquical. At 3 hours, the meal service started. At 4 hours, Emma woke up crying from a nightmare she wouldn't talk about. At 5 hours, Logan gave up on sleep entirely and stared out the window at the endless black Atlantic below. At 5 hours and 43 minutes, everything went wrong. The turbulence hit without warning. Not the gentle bump and sway of normal rough air. This was violent. The aircraft dropped 50 feet in half a second, then slammed upward hard enough to throw anything not secured into the ceiling. Overhead bins popped open. A laptop flew across the cabin. Someone screamed. Logan's hand shot out instinctively, bracing Emma against the seat. Daddy, it's okay. Just turbulence. But it wasn't okay. He knew the difference between weather and something worse. This was something worse. The aircraft shuddered again. Harder. The lights flickered. Somewhere behind them, a flight attendant hit the floor. Then the PA system crackled. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Morrison. We've encountered some unexpected weather. Please return to your seats immediately and ensure your seatbelts are fastened. Flight attendants, prepare for... The transmission cut off mid-sentence. Logan's chest tightened. That wasn't normal. The aircraft bucked again, harder than before. A woman 2 rows back vomited into a bag. A man's drink shattered against the armrest. The cabin tilted 15 degrees left, then corrected violently right. Emma was crying now, face buried against Logan's chest. "It's just weather," he said again, but the words tasted like lies. Then the cockpit door opened. A flight attendant stumbled out, face pale, makeup smeared. She looked around the cabin with wild eyes, and Logan saw real fear there. Not the controlled concern of someone managing a situation, raw panic. She grabbed the nearest flight attendant, a younger man in his 20s. They whispered urgently. Logan couldn't hear the words over the engine noise and passenger murmurs, but he read their body language clearly enough. Something was very wrong. The younger attendant moved toward the PA system. His hand shook as he lifted the handset. "Is there anyone on board with aviation experience? Pilot, co-pilot, military flight training? We need someone in the cockpit immediately." The cabin went silent, then erupted. People started talking at once, shouting questions. A man 3 rows back stood up despite the turbulence. "What's happening? Is the pilot okay? Please remain seated, sir." "Tell us what's going on." The flight attendant's voice cracked. "The captain has lost consciousness. The first officer needs assistance." More screams, someone started praying loudly. A baby wailed. The aircraft dropped again and Logan's stomach lurched with the sensation of free fall before the nose came back up. Emma's fingers dug into his arm. "Daddy, I'm scared." Logan's mouth was dry. He looked at the cockpit door, still open. He could see movement inside. The young first officer hunched over the controls, frantically working switches Logan recognized even from this distance. He could help. He knew he could help. But if he went up there, Emma would be alone, terrified, surrounded by panicking strangers while her father disappeared into the cockpit to fly a plane he hadn't touched in 6 years. And what if he failed? What if his hands shook? What if he froze? What if 6 years of construction work and overnight shifts had dulled the reflexes he'd spent a decade building? What if he killed everyone? The aircraft shuddered violently. Warning chimes echoed through the cabin, master caution alerts that meant critical systems were failing. Logan knew those sounds, knew exactly how bad things had to be before those alarms went off. The flight attendant was looking around desperately. "Anyone? Please?" Nobody moved. 300 people on this plane. Statistically, at least a few had to have some kind of flight training, but nobody was standing up. Nobody wanted the responsibility. Nobody wanted to be the one who tried and failed. Logan closed his eyes, felt Emma shaking against him, made his decision. He started to stand. "I'll do it." The voice came from 3 rows ahead. Logan's eyes snapped open. The photographer was standing in the aisle, leather jacket zipped up, camera bag over her shoulder. She was looking directly at him, not at the flight attendants, not at the cockpit, at him. "You'll do it," she said quietly. "Won't you?" It wasn't a question. Logan stared at her. The cabin noise faded to white noise. He saw recognition in her eyes, the same recognition he'd felt earlier without understanding why. She'd been watching him, reading him, seeing the things he tried to hide. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. She took a step closer, lowered her voice so only he could hear over the chaos. "You've been watching the exit since we boarded. You know the emergency procedures. You read the safety card like you wrote it, and when that alarm went off," she nodded toward the cockpit, "you recognized it. That doesn't mean you know how to fly this plane." Her eyes were sharp, certain. "And right now, that first officer up there is maybe 23 years old and scared out of his mind. So either you get up there and help him, or we crash into the Atlantic and everyone dies." Emma was looking up at him now, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy?" Logan's heart hammered against his ribs. The aircraft dropped again. Someone screamed. Metal groaned. The overhead bins rattled like they might tear free. The photographer leaned in closer. "What's your daughter's name?" "Emma?" "Emma needs you to save her life right now." Her voice was steady, firm. "So move." Logan looked at Emma, at her terrified face, at the trust still visible beneath the fear. He thought about Sarah, about promises he'd made and broken, about the man he used to be before grief and guilt hollowed him out. He stood up. The flight attendants noticed immediately. The younger one rushed over. "Sir, do you have flight experience?" "Commercial and military," Logan said. His voice sounded strange, distant. 6 years inactive. "Jesus Christ, thank God." The attendant grabbed his arm. "Come with me." Logan turned to Emma, knelt down to her level. "Listen to me. I need to go help fly the plane, just for a little while." "No." Her voice was small, broken. "Don't leave me." "I won't. I promise. But I need you to be brave right now." The photographer crouched beside them. "Hey, Emma. My name's Sienna. I'm going to stay right here with you while your dad works, okay? We'll keep each other company." Emma looked between them. "I don't know you." "You will." Sienna smiled. It was a real smile. Warm. "I'll tell you about all the places I've been. London, Tokyo, Iceland. Ever seen pictures of the Northern Lights?" Emma hesitated, then nodded slightly. Logan met Sienna's eyes. Saw something there he couldn't name. Trust. Determination. A complete stranger making a promise to his daughter. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me yet." She touched his shoulder briefly. "Just don't crash the plane." Logan straightened, turned toward the cockpit. The flight attendant was already pulling him forward. Verschammt. The cockpit was chaos. Warning lights blazed across every panel. Alarms screamed from multiple systems. The captain slumped unconscious in the left seat, blood trickling from his temple where he'd hit the instrument panel. And in the right seat, a kid who barely looked old enough to rent a car was fighting the controls with both hands, sweat pouring down his face. The first officer's head snapped around when Logan entered. "Who are you?" "Logan Pierce, commercial pilot, military background." He was already scanning the instruments, reading the story they told. "What happened?" "Captain collapsed. Then we hit the storm. Hydraulics are failing. I've got manual reversion on 2 systems. Autopilot's offline, and I can't breathe." Logan moved to the captain's seat, checking the man's pulse. Steady. Probably a stroke or cardiac event. "He's stable. Let's worry about keeping us in the air first." He slid into the left seat, and 20 years of muscle memory took over. His hands moved across the panel, silencing non-critical alarms, assessing system states, calculating their position. The young first officer, his nameplate read Harrison, watched with desperate hope. "Where are we?" Logan asked. "About 1,500 miles from London, halfway across the Atlantic. Nearest airport? Shannon, Ireland, maybe 900 miles northeast, but with the hydraulics failing, Logan checked the readings. Engine power was good, fuel was adequate, but the hydraulic pressure gauges were dropping on 2 of 3 systems. That meant they were losing flight control authority. The aircraft would become increasingly difficult to maneuver. Another massive jolt slammed through the aircraft. The yoke jerked in Logan's hands. He gripped it tighter, feeling the resistance, the sluggish response. "When did the hydraulics start failing?" he asked. "Right after the captain collapsed. He fell against the console. I think he hit something." Logan's eyes dropped to the center pedestal. Saw the problem immediately. A switch guard was broken. The captain had landed on the hydraulic isolation controls when he fell, cutting off 2 systems. Easy fix, except it wasn't. Because isolating the systems was a safety feature. If they were isolated, there was a reason. Re-engaging them without knowing why could cause catastrophic failure. "Give me the QRH," Logan said. Harrison fumbled for the quick reference handbook. Logan flipped through pages rapidly, finding the hydraulic failure checklist. His eyes scanned procedures he'd memorized a decade ago. The aircraft bucked again. Harder. "We're losing altitude," Harrison said. 37,000 and descending. Logan looked at the artificial horizon. They were in a slight bank. The storm was pushing them off course, and without full hydraulic authority, correcting would burn fuel they might not have. He had to make a decision. Re-engage the hydraulics and risk complete failure, or keep flying manual reversion with degraded controls and hope they could make it to Ireland. "Logan?" Harrison's voice cracked. "What do we do?" Logan's hands rested on the controls. Outside the windscreen, lightning flashed through black clouds. The aircraft shook like something alive and angry. He thought about Emma 3 rows back, terrified and alone, except for a stranger named Sienna. He thought about Sarah, who told him he could do anything as long as he believed in himself. He thought about the last time he'd sat in a cockpit, the night he almost killed everyone because he was too proud to admit he was falling apart. "We're not going to Ireland," Logan said quietly. Harrison stared at him. "What?" Logan pulled up the navigation display, zoomed out, started searching. "The hydraulics are too unstable. We might make Shannon, but if we lose pressure during approach in this weather," he shook his head, "we'll crash." "Then where?" "There." Logan pointed at a tiny marker on the screen. "Keflavik Island, former NATO emergency airstrip, 3,000-meter runway, 200 miles south-southwest." Harrison's eyes went wide. "That's insane. The runway's probably not even maintained. No tower, no approach lights. And in this storm, it's our only shot." Logan was already calculating. Distance, fuel, descent rate. "We don't have enough hydraulics to make Ireland, but we can make that island. We put her down hard and fast and everyone lives. Or we miss the runway and crash into the cliffs." "Yeah." Logan met his eyes. "That's the other option." For a long moment, Harrison just stared at him. Then slowly, he nodded. Okay. What do you need me to do?" "Get on the radio. Contact Reykjavik Center. Tell them we're declaring an emergency and diverting to Keflavik Island. Then prep the cabin crew. Tell them we're making an emergency landing in..." He checked the instruments. 32 minutes. Harrison grabbed the radio mic. His hand was shaking. Logan turned back to the controls. 32 minutes to save 273 lives. No pressure. In the cabin, Sienna held Emma's hand while the world tried to tear itself apart. The announcement had come 5 minutes ago. Emergency landing, island runway, prepare for impact. People were screaming, crying, praying. A man 2 rows back was hyperventilating into a paper bag. Someone else was writing a note on a napkin. Last words to family, Sienna assumed. Emma hadn't said anything, just sat frozen, staring at the cockpit door. "He's going to be okay," Sienna said. "You don't know that." "You're right. I don't." Sienna squeezed her hand. "But I know your dad walked into that cockpit like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment, and I know he's not going to let you down." Emma finally looked at her. "How do you know?" "Because I saw his face when he looked at you." Sienna smiled slightly. "That's a man who would fly through hell to get you home safe." "You sound like my mom." "Yeah? She must have been smart. She died." Emma's voice was flat, empty. 3 years ago, car accident." Sienna's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "Everyone says that, but it doesn't change anything." "No, it didn't." The aircraft dropped again. Sienna's stomach lurched. Around them, passengers screamed. The flight attendants were moving through the cabin now, demonstrating brace positions, checking seatbelts, trying to maintain calm while their own faces betrayed terror. Sienna pulled out her phone, started recording a video. "What are you doing?" Emma asked. "Making a promise." Sienna kept the camera steady on Emma's face. "If something happens to me, if I don't make it, I want you to know that your dad never gave up, that he fought for you, that everything he did was because he loves you more than anything in this world." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because sometimes people need to hear the truth before it's too late." Emma's lower lip trembled. "I don't want him to die." "Then we better make sure he doesn't." Sienna put the phone away. "Come here." She pulled Emma into a hug. The little girl resisted for half a second, then collapsed against her, sobbing. Around them, the cabin descended into chaos. Above them, Logan fought to keep them alive. And outside, the storm raged on. Logan's hands were cramping. 18 minutes of fighting the controls. 18 minutes of forcing an aircraft designed for computer-assisted flight to respond to pure manual input. The yoke felt like concrete. Every adjustment required twice the force it should have. His shoulders burned. Sweat ran down his temples despite the cockpit's climate control. "Altitude 31,000, Harrison called out. His voice had steadied slightly. Having something to do, someone to follow, seemed to be keeping him functional. Rate of descent 1,200 feet per minute. Too fast. Logan pulled back on the yoke. The nose came up grudgingly. I need you on the throttles. Match my inputs. When I pull, you reduce power. When I push, you add it. Got it? Got it. They worked in synchronized silence for the next 2 minutes, feeling out the rhythm. Logan would make a control input. Harrison would adjust engine power to compensate. It was crude, inefficient, but it was working. The hydraulic pressure gauge on System 2 dropped another 5 psi. Logan's jaw tightened. They were bleeding fluid somewhere. Slow leak, maybe from a damaged line. Nothing catastrophic yet, but every pound of pressure they lost made the aircraft harder to control. How far to the island? He asked. Harrison checked the navigation display. 143 miles, 18 minutes at current ground speed. 18 minutes. Logan did the math in his head. Current descent rate would put them at 22,000 feet by the time they reached Keflavik. Still too high for a straight-in approach. They'd need to circle, burn altitude, set up for landing, all with degraded flight controls in the middle of a storm. His stomach tightened. We need to dump fuel, he said. Harrison blinked. What? We're too heavy. Maximum landing weight on a 777 is 570,000 pounds. We took off at 640. How much have we burned? Harrison frantically pulled up the fuel display. 63,000 pounds. So we're still 17,000 over max landing weight. Logan kept his voice level. And that's assuming the landing gear doesn't collapse on impact. We hit that runway too heavy, we'll tear the gear right off. But fuel dumping takes time. We'd need to climb back up, establish a racetrack pattern. We don't have time. Logan cut him off. We dump now. During descent, burn off what we can before we get there. Harrison's face went pale. That's not procedure. Nothing about this is procedure. Logan reached for the fuel jettison panel. You want to do this by the book, or you want to live? For a moment, Harrison didn't move. Then he nodded. Logan flipped open the guard on the fuel dump switches, pulled both levers. Outside, fuel began streaming from the wingtips, vaporizing instantly in the frigid air at 30,000 feet. Set the dump rate to max, Logan said. We'll cut it off when we hit 580. Harrison's hands moved across the panel. This is insane. Welcome to aviation. Logan checked the attitude indicator. They were still descending, still on course. The storm buffeted them continuously, but the worst of the turbulence seemed to be behind them. Get me weather for Keflavik. There's no tower, no automated system. Then get me Reykjavik. They'll have regional data. Harrison grabbed the radio. Reykjavik Center, Atlantic 447, requesting current weather Keflavik Island area. Static. Then a calm Icelandic voice responded. Atlantic 447 Reykjavik, Keflavik Island reporting winds 270 at 35 knots, gusting to 50. Visibility 1 mile in heavy rain, ceiling indefinite, sky obscured. Altimeter 2942. Logan's stomach dropped. 50-knot crosswinds. Mile visibility. No ceiling. He'd landed in worse. Once. In a simulator. And it had taken him 4 tries. Acknowledge receipt, he told Harrison. Reykjavik 447. Roger. Logan looked at the young first officer, saw the fear creeping back into his eyes. We're going to be fine. You don't know that. No. Logan's hands tightened on the yoke. But I'm going to pretend I do. And you're going to pretend right along with me, because that cabin back there is full of people who need us to be confident, even if we're not. Harrison swallowed hard. How do you do that? Act like you're not scared? Who said I'm not scared? Logan glanced at him. I'm terrified. I just don't have time to think about it. The aircraft shuddered. The hydraulic pressure gauge dropped again. Logan forced himself to breathe. 14 minutes to landing. Chalky. In the cabin, the oxygen masks had dropped. It happened without warning. One moment the passengers were bracing in their seats, terrified but holding together. The next, yellow masks fell from the overhead panels, dangling on rubber tubes, while a recorded voice told everyone to secure their own mask before helping others. Panic erupted instantly. We're crashing, someone screamed. Oh my God, oh my God. A woman in the back started hyperventilating so hard she passed out. The man beside her didn't notice because he was too busy trying to figure out which way the mask went on his face. Sienna grabbed the mask nearest to Emma, pulled it over the girl's face. "Breathe normally, just like that. You're doing great." Emma's eyes were huge behind the clear plastic. Sienna secured her own mask, then looked around the cabin. The flight attendants were trying to restore order, but there were only 4 of them, and 270 passengers losing their minds simultaneously. A middle-aged man lurched out of his seat 3 rows up, mask dangling from his face. "I need to get off this plane!" He started moving toward the emergency exit. "Sir, sit down!" A flight attendant rushed after him. He ignored her, grabbed the exit door handle. Sienna was already moving. She covered the distance in 3 strides, caught the man's wrist before he could pull the lever. "Don't! Get off me! You pull that door at 30,000 feet, we all die. Is that what you want?" The man's eyes were wild, unfocused. He jerked against her grip, surprisingly strong for someone in business casual. Sienna shifted her weight, used his momentum against him, guided him back toward his seat with a precision that suggested she'd done this before. The flight attendant stared at her. "Are you former military?" Sienna lied smoothly. Not entirely a lie. She'd done security work in places where knowing how to handle aggressive people was a survival skill. "He's having a panic attack. Get me a blanket." The attendant nodded and rushed off. Sienna pushed the man into his seat, kept her hand firm on his shoulder. "Look at me. Look at me. What's your name?" "Robert." His voice shook. "Robert Chen." "Okay, Robert. I need you to breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Can you do that?" I can't breathe." "Yes, you can. The mask is giving you oxygen. Your body is fine. Your mind is just scared. So we're going to trick your mind." Sienna made eye contact, held it. "Breathe in. Count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Robert sucked in air. "Now out. Slower. 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He exhaled shakily. Again. They did it 3 more times. Robert's eyes gradually cleared. His breathing steadied. By the time the flight attendant returned with a blanket, he was slumped in his seat, exhausted but functional. "Thank you," he whispered. Sienna tucked the blanket around him. "Stay in your seat. We'll be down soon." She made her way back to Emma. The girl was still sitting exactly where Sienna had left her, mask on, hands gripped white-knuckled around the armrests. "You okay?" Sienna asked. Emma nodded slightly. "Good. Because I need you to help me with something." "What?" "I need you to be brave for the people around us." Sienna gestured to the other passengers, the crying woman across the aisle, the elderly couple holding hands with tears streaming down their faces, the college kid who looked like he was about to vomit. "They're scared, really scared, but if they see you being calm, it'll help them be calm too." "I'm not calm," Emma said. Her voice was muffled behind the mask. "I'm really scared." "I know, but here's a secret." Sienna leaned closer. "Brave doesn't mean you're not scared. Brave means you're scared. And you do it anyway. Your dad taught you that, right?" Emma hesitated, then nodded. "So show me how brave you can be." Emma took a shaky breath, straightened her shoulders. The fear was still visible in her eyes, but something else was there too now. Determination. Her mother's stubbornness, maybe. Or her father's quiet strength. Sienna squeezed her hand. "That's my girl." The aircraft dropped again. Stomachs lurched. Someone screamed. But Emma didn't scream. She just held Sienna's hand and breathed. Spat. Logan saw the island through a gap in the clouds. Just for a second. A dark shape against darker water. Rocky cliffs. White surf crashing against black sand beaches. And there, barely visible through the rain, a single strip of pavement cutting across the northern end of the island like a scar. Then the clouds closed in again, and it was gone. "Did you see it?" Harrison asked. "Yeah." Logan's mouth was dry. The runway looked even smaller than he'd expected. Shorter, narrower, surrounded by terrain that would kill them instantly if they missed the approach. He checked the instruments. Altitude 24,000, distance to island 87 miles. Fuel dumping was complete. They were still 1,700 pounds over max landing weight, but that was as good as it was going to get. Time to set up for approach. I need you to run the landing checklist, Logan said. Everything by the book. Gear down, flaps extended, final approach speed calculated. Then I need you on the radio. Contact Reykjavik. Tell them we're beginning our descent. If this goes wrong, I want someone to know where we went down. Harrison's hands were shaking again. Roger. Logan began the descent. Reducing power, lowering the nose, watching the vertical speed indicator creep higher. The aircraft felt heavy, sluggish. Every input took longer to register. The hydraulic pressure on System 2 was now at 40%. System 3 at 62%. System 1, the only fully functional system left, was holding steady at 98%. For now. They broke through the cloud layer at 18,000 feet. The island appeared below them, small and dark and utterly isolated. No lights, no civilization, just rock and water and a ribbon of concrete that might save their lives or kill them all. Gear down, Harrison called out. Logan felt the thunk through the airframe as the landing gear extended. 3 green lights appeared on the panel. Nose gear down and locked. Left main down and locked. Right main down and locked. Flaps to 5, Logan said. Harrison moved the lever. The aircraft shuddered as the flaps began extending. Logan felt the increased drag immediately. The nose wanted to pitch down. He compensated with back pressure on the yoke. His arms were screaming now. Every muscle from his shoulders to his wrists burned with fatigue. Flaps to 15. Another shudder. More drag. The aircraft slowed. Flaps to 25. They were at 15,000 feet now. The island was growing larger. Logan could see individual features, the cliffs on the southern shore, the cluster of abandoned buildings near the runway's northern end, the waves hammering against the rocks with enough force to throw spray 50 feet into the air. The crosswind was worse than he'd expected. The aircraft was crabbing hard, nose pointed 30 degrees into the wind just to maintain course. Landing in this was going to require perfect timing. He'd need to hold the crab until the last possible second, then kick the rudder to align the aircraft with the runway centerline just before touchdown. Too early, and the wind would push them off course. Too late, and they'd land sideways and shear off the landing gear. Flaps to 30, Logan said. Final approach speed? Harrison checked the calculator. 143 knots. Set it. They were at 12,000 feet, 6 miles from the runway. The windscreen was a mess of rain and spray. Logan could barely see. He switched on the wipers. They helped marginally. Reykjavik, Atlantic 447, Harrison called into the radio. Beginning final approach Keflavik Island, runway 09. Emergency landing, hydraulic failure, 50-knot crosswind. The Icelandic controller's voice came back calm and professional. 447 Reykjavik. We have emergency services standing by in Reykjavik Harbor. Coast Guard helicopters launching now. We'll be ready for you. If we survive, Logan thought. Tell them we'll be on the ground in 4 minutes, he said. Harrison relayed the message. 4 minutes. Logan's hands were slick with sweat inside his grip on the yoke. He could feel every gust of wind, every pressure change transmitted through the sluggish hydraulics into his arms. The aircraft wanted to weather vane into the wind. He fought it constantly. Small corrections, tiny adjustments, trying to maintain a stable descent path while the storm did everything possible to kill them. Altitude 8,000, Harrison called. 3 miles out. Logan could see the runway now. A dark line between darker cliffs. No approach lights. No PAPI guidance system. No precision instruments. Just visual reference and 20 years of muscle memory. Full flaps, he said. Harrison moved the lever to the final position. The aircraft's nose pitched down hard. Logan pulled back on the yoke, fighting to maintain the glide path. The hydraulics groaned. System 2 pressure dropped to 35%. We're losing 2, Harrison said. His voice was tight. I know. Logan's eyes never left the runway. How's 3? 60%. Stable? Then we're fine. Altitude? 6,000, 2 miles. The island filled the windscreen now. Logan could see the cracks in the runway pavement, the weeds growing through the expansion joints, the rust stains where decades of Atlantic weather had eaten through the concrete. 1 mile. Altitude 4,000. Too high. They were coming in too steep. Logan reduced power. The engine spooled down. The descent rate increased, 1,500 feet per minute, 1,800, 2,000. That's a lot of sink, Harrison said. I know. Logan, I know. Altitude 3,000, half a mile. The runway was rushing toward them. Logan could see the numbers painted on the threshold. 09. Could see the tire marks from aircraft that had landed here decades ago when this place still mattered. He was going to add them to the collection, or die trying. 500 feet, Harrison's voice cracked. Sink rate 2,200. The ground proximity warning started screaming. Terrain, terrain, pull up, pull up. Logan ignored it, kept the descent going, watched the runway center line, felt the crosswind pushing them left, compensated with aileron, held the crab angle, waited for the right moment. 200 feet. The cliffs flashed past on both sides. Black rock. White spray. Certain death if he misjudged by even a few feet. 100 feet. Logan kicked the rudder hard right. The nose swung. The aircraft aligned with the runway center line. For one perfect second, everything was straight, wings level, nose pointed down the numbers, exactly where it needed to be. Then the wind hit them. A massive gust from the left. 50 knots, maybe more. The aircraft rolled right. The wing dipped toward the ground. The runway tilted crazily in the windscreen. Shit! Harrison grabbed his armrest. Logan slammed the yoke left. Full aileron. The hydraulics screamed in protest. System 2 failed completely. The wing came back up, barely. They were 10 feet off the runway, 5 feet, 3. The main gear slammed into concrete with a force that rattled Logan's teeth, but they were down. The nose gear hit a second later. Hard. Brutally hard. Logan felt the shock absorber compress, heard metal groan. For a terrifying moment, he thought the gear was going to collapse. It held. Reverse thrust, he shouted. Harrison's hand moved to the thrust levers, pulled them back into reverse. The engines roared. The aircraft shuddered. Deceleration pressed them forward against their harnesses. Logan stood on the brakes. The anti-skid system was barely functional with the degraded hydraulics. The tires screamed. Smoke poured from the wheel wells. The aircraft slewed slightly left. Logan corrected with rudder, fought to keep them on the center line. The far end of the runway was approaching fast, too fast. We're not going to stop, Harrison said. Logan didn't answer, just pushed harder on the brakes. The pedals were almost to the floor. The tires were locked up. They were skidding now, pure friction between rubber and concrete. He could smell burning. The end of the runway flashed past. They weren't stopping. Beyond the pavement was dirt, rocks, 100-foot drop into the ocean. Brace, Logan shouted into the intercom. The nose wheel left the pavement. Hit dirt. The aircraft lurched, bounced. The right main gear dug into soft ground. The aircraft started to spin. Logan cut the engines. Everything went silent except for the screaming of metal and the thunder of their own momentum carrying them toward the cliff edge. The world moved in slow motion. Logan saw the ocean beyond the nose, saw the rocks, saw the white spray of waves breaking against stone. Then the left main gear caught on something. A boulder, a drainage ditch, something. The aircraft stopped, just stopped, exactly 17 feet from the cliff edge. For several seconds, nobody moved, nobody breathed. Then Logan's hands started shaking so badly he had to let go of the yoke. We're alive, Harrison whispered. Holy shit, we're alive. Logan closed his eyes, felt the adrenaline draining out of him, leaving nothing but exhaustion and the crushing weight of what he'd just done. Behind him, through the cockpit door, he could hear the cabin erupting. Screams, crying, applause, the chaotic noise of 270 people realizing they weren't going to die. Logan opened the cockpit door. The cabin was chaos. Passengers were hugging, crying, laughing hysterically. The flight attendants were trying to organize an evacuation, but nobody was listening. Oxygen masks dangled from the ceiling, carry-on bags had spilled into the aisles, a few overhead bins had popped open during the landing, but everyone was alive. Logan's eyes found Emma immediately. She was still in her seat, still holding Sienna's hand. When she saw him, her face crumpled. She tried to climb over Sienna, but her seatbelt caught. Logan was already moving down the aisle. Passengers reached out to touch him. Thank him. He barely registered it. He knelt beside Emma's seat and she threw herself into his arms. I thought you were going to die, she sobbed into his shoulder. I thought, I know, but I didn't. Logan held her so tight it probably hurt. I told you I wouldn't leave you. You promised, and I kept it. Sienna was watching them with something complicated in her expression. Logan met her eyes over Emma's shoulder. Thank you, he said quietly. You saved us. Her voice was steady. I just kept your daughter from falling apart while you did it. That's more than just... The head flight attendant appeared beside them. Mr. Pierce, the captain is still unconscious. We need to... Get everyone off the aircraft first, Logan interrupted. Emergency slides, now. That hydraulic leak could turn into a fire. I want everyone clear of the plane in the next 5 minutes. The attendant nodded and rushed off. Logan stood, still holding Emma. She wrapped her legs around his waist like she used to when she was smaller, refused to let go. Sienna stood as well. Need help with the evacuation? You've done enough. That wasn't a question. She was already moving toward the emergency exit. Someone needs to make sure these people don't kill themselves sliding down into rocks. She was right. Logan had seen evacuation panic before. People broke ankles jumping onto slides wrong, trampled each other trying to get out first. Without proper crowd control, they could lose passengers to injuries that should never have happened. Okay, he said. Help organize them. Shoes off, empty pockets, arms crossed, standard procedure. Sienna nodded and started directing passengers. The evacuation took 8 minutes. 8 minutes of controlled chaos as 273 people slid down inflatable ramps onto wet volcanic rock in the middle of a storm. 8 minutes of Logan standing at the forward exit, helping elderly passengers, carrying children, making sure nobody got left behind. Emma refused to leave his side. When the last passenger was clear, Logan did a final sweep of the cabin, checked every row, every bathroom, every overhead bin, made absolutely sure nobody was unconscious or hiding or trapped. The aircraft was empty. He stood at the forward door for a moment, looking back at the chaos. The deployed oxygen masks, the scattered belongings, the evidence of 273 people who thought they were going to die and didn't. Then he jumped onto the slide and let gravity take him. The rain was cold against his face. The wind nearly knocked him over when he landed. Around him, passengers huddled together for warmth. Some were still crying. Others sat in shocked silence. A few were already pulling out phones, trying to get signal to call loved ones. Sienna appeared beside him. Everyone's accounted for. A few minor injuries, nothing serious. Logan nodded. He was so tired he could barely stand. Your daughter is with the flight attendants, Sienna continued. They're trying to find shelter. There's some kind of abandoned control tower building. Might have working heat. Okay. Logan's voice came out hoarse. We should... He didn't finish the sentence. His legs gave out. Sienna caught him before he hit the ground. Whoa! Easy. Sorry, I'm just... Crashing. Yeah. Adrenaline dump. I've seen it before. She helped him sit on a rock. Put your head between your knees. Breathe. Logan obeyed. The world spun. His hands were still shaking. Now that the emergency was over, his body was reminding him that he'd just spent 30 minutes fighting a crippled aircraft through a storm after 6 years of not flying at all. You did good, Sienna said quietly. We got lucky. Luck is what happens when skill meets opportunity. She sat beside him. And you had the skill. 17 feet, Logan said. We stopped 17 feet from going over the cliff. That's not skill. That's luck. I'll take it either way. Logan looked up at her. Really looked. She was soaked through, hair plastered to her face, leather jacket dark with rain. But she was smiling, actually smiling. Who are you? He asked. Sienna Blake, travel photographer, adrenaline junkie, apparently pretty good in a crisis. She shrugged. And I'm the person who made sure your daughter knew you were coming back. How did you know? That you'd make it? That I could fly? Sienna was quiet for a moment. I didn't. Not for sure. But I saw the way you looked at that cockpit door, like you were scared of it and drawn to it at the same time. That's not how civilians look at things. That's how people look at the thing they used to be good at and walked away from. Logan's chest tightened. You saw all that? I noticed things. Hazard of the job. She stood, offered him a hand. Come on, your daughter needs to see you're okay. and we should find that control tower before we all freeze to death. Logan let her pull him to his feet. They found Emma with a group of passengers huddled under the wing of the aircraft, using it as a windbreak. When she saw Logan, she ran to him again. He picked her up and carried her toward the control tower building. The structure was old, concrete and rusted metal, windows broken, door hanging off its hinges. But inside, out of the wind, it was marginally better than standing in the rain. Someone had found emergency blankets in the aircraft's survival kit. Passengers were wrapping themselves up, sharing body heat, trying to stay warm while they waited for rescue. Harrison appeared beside Logan. The young first officer looked like he'd aged 10 years. Coast Guard says they're 30 minutes out. Weather's too rough for helicopters. They're sending boats. Boats in this? Logan looked out at the ocean. Waves were still hammering the cliffs. That's going to be rough. Yeah, well, Harrison's voice shook. Everything about this has been rough. You did good up there. I froze. You saw it. I completely froze. And then you unfroze, Logan said. That's what matters. You could have stayed panicked. You didn't. Harrison met his eyes. I'm putting in my resignation when we get back. Don't. I'm not cut out for this. Nobody is cut out for this, Logan said. That's not how it works. You learn. You train. You get better. But there's always going to be a situation that scares you. Always. The question is what you do with that fear. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slightly. I need to check on the captain. He walked away. Sienna appeared with 2 emergency blankets. She wrapped one around Emma, one around Logan. You're shivering. I'm fine. You're in shock. Let me help. Logan didn't have the energy to argue. He let her guide him to sit against the wall. Emma curled up against his chest. Sienna sat beside them. For a while, nobody spoke. Outside, the storm continued. The rain hammered the broken windows. The wind howled through gaps in the walls. But inside, wrapped in thin metallic blankets with his daughter safe in his arms, Logan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Thank you, he said to Sienna. You already said that. I'm saying it again. She smiled slightly. You're welcome. Emma stirred. Sienna? Yeah, sweetheart? Are you going to leave when the boats come? Sienna glanced at Logan, then back at Emma. I don't know. Where are you two headed after London? Home, Emma said. Chicago. I live in New York, so probably not the same direction. Emma's face fell. Logan felt something twist in his chest, something that had nothing to do with the crash or the storm or the exhaustion currently trying to drag him under. You could visit, he heard himself say. If you want. I mean, we owe you for keeping Emma safe. So if you're ever in Chicago, I'd like that, Sienna said. And from the look in her eyes, she meant it. Emma smiled. Outside in the distance, boat engines growled against the storm. Rescue was coming. The Coast Guard boats arrived 47 minutes later, not 30. Logan watched from the broken window of the control tower as 3 rigid hull inflatables fought their way through the surf. Each wave that hit the rocks sent spray 20 feet into the air. The boats would climb a swell, disappear into the trough, then reappear closer to shore. It looked suicidal. They're insane, Harrison muttered beside him. Nobody should be out in that. They do it because we need them to, Logan said. His voice was flat, exhausted. Same reason you stayed in that cockpit instead of running. Harrison didn't respond. The first boat made it to a narrow inlet between 2 rock formations. A crew member in an orange survival suit jumped into waist-deep water, secured a line to an outcropping. Within minutes, they'd established a human chain from boat to shore. The evacuation began immediately. Women and children first, then elderly passengers, then everyone else. The flight attendants organized people into groups of 10, keeping families together, making sure nobody got separated in the chaos. Emma clung to Logan's hand as they waited their turn. She hadn't let go since the boats arrived. Hadn't spoken much either. Just watched everything with those 2 old eyes that broke Logan's heart every time he looked at her. Sienna stood nearby, camera in hand. She'd been photographing the rescue operation for the last 10 minutes. Not frantically, not like the passengers who were documenting everything for social media. Just methodical shots. The boats fighting the waves. The passengers huddled in blankets. The aircraft sitting crooked on the cliff edge. You're working? Logan asked. She lowered the camera. Force of habit. This is the kind of thing people need to see. Exploitation, you mean? Documentation. Her voice was firm. There's a difference. These people survived something impossible. That matters. Only if they want it shared. Sienna looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned the camera off and put it away. You're right. Sorry. Logan hadn't expected that. Most people doubled down when challenged. I didn't mean... No, you're right. She zipped the camera bag. I got caught up in the moment, forgot these are real people, not just a story. Emma tugged Logan's sleeve. Our turn. The flight attendant was waving them forward. Logan picked Emma up, even though she was getting too big for it, and carried her toward the inlet. Sienna followed. The water was brutally cold. It soaked through Logan's jeans immediately, turned his legs numb within seconds. He held Emma above the waterline, passed her to a crew member in the boat, then climbed in himself. Sienna came right after. The boat ride to the Coast Guard cutter was the worst 15 minutes of Logan's life. Each wave lifted them 10 feet, dropped them into nothing. The hull slammed against the water hard enough to rattle teeth. Emma buried her face in Logan's chest and didn't look up once. Sienna sat across from them, one hand gripping a safety line, face pale but composed. When they finally reached the cutter, strong hands pulled them aboard. Someone wrapped a thermal blanket around Emma. Someone else pressed a bottle of water into Logan's hand. The crew was efficient, practiced, moving with the kind of calm urgency that came from doing impossible things regularly. Captain Morrison? A woman in a Coast Guard uniform appeared beside Logan. I'm Lieutenant Hansen. We have medical staff standing by. Your captain is stable, but still unconscious. We're transferring him to Reykjavik General as soon as we get everyone aboard. How long until we reach port? Logan asked. 4 hours. Maybe 5 with this weather. She glanced at Emma. We have bunks below deck. Your daughter looks like she could use some rest. I'm not leaving my dad, Emma said immediately. You don't have to. Hansen's expression softened. There's a family berth. You can both stay there. Logan nodded. Thank you. Hansen started to turn away, then stopped. The airline is already trying to reach you. They want a statement. So does the Aviation Authority, and about 50 news outlets. Logan's stomach sank. Tell them I'm not available. I can tell them. Doesn't mean they'll stop calling. She handed him a satellite phone. This is secure. Only people with the number can reach you. I'd keep it that way if I were you. She walked off before Logan could respond. Sienna was watching him with that too observant expression again. You really don't want the attention. Would you? I spend my life trying to get people to notice my work. So yeah, probably. She smiled slightly. But I'm not you. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're the kind of person who does extraordinary things and then wants to disappear. Sienna shifted the emergency blanket around her shoulders. I've met people like that before. Usually in war zones. They save lives and then can't handle being called heroes. Logan's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about me? I know you walked away from flying for a reason. I know you buried yourself in a life you hate because it felt safer than being who you used to be. And I know saving this plane just dragged you back into the thing you've been running from for 6 years. The accuracy of it stung. Logan looked away. Emma was watching them both. Why are you being mean to Sienna? I'm not. You are. She helped us. Why are you mad at her? I'm not mad. Yes, you are. Emma's voice was quiet but certain. You always get like this when people see you. Logan's chest constricted. When had his daughter learned to read him this well? When had he become so transparent? Sienna stood. I'm going to find coffee. Give you two some space. You don't have to eat. Yeah, I do. She touched Emma's shoulder briefly. Take care of your dad, okay? He's had a rough day. She walked away before Logan could stop her. Emma looked up at him. You made her leave. She chose to leave because you were being mean. Emma, Mom used to say you push people away when they get too close. Emma's eyes were bright with tears. She said you don't mean to, but you do it anyway. Logan felt like he'd been punched. Your mom said that? Not to me, to Aunt Rachel, but I heard. Emma wiped her eyes. I don't want you to push Sienna away. I like her. Sweetheart, we just met her. We don't even know her. She stayed with me when I was scared. She made me feel safe. Emma's voice cracked. Nobody's made me feel safe since Mom died, not even you. The words hit harder than any turbulence. Logan pulled Emma close, felt her shaking against him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you try, Emma whispered, but you're always scared. And it makes me scared too. Logan closed his eyes. She was right. He'd spent 3 years living in fear. Fear of losing her the way he'd lost Sarah. Fear of failing as a father. Fear of being the same broken person who'd walked away from flying because he couldn't trust himself anymore. And Emma had absorbed all of it. I'll do better, he said quietly. I promise. You always promise. This time I mean it. Emma pulled back to look at him. Then go find Sienna and apologize. Now? Yeah, now. Logan almost smiled. When had his 7-year-old become the adult in their relationship? Okay, but you need to stay here, with the crew. I'll be fine. Emma settled onto one of the benches, wrapped the blanket tighter around herself. Go. Logan stood, looked around the deck, spotted Sienna at the far railing, staring out at the black water. He walked over slowly. I'm sorry. She didn't turn. For what? For being an ass. Emma called me out on it. Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. Logan leaned against the railing beside her. She said I push people away, that I've been doing it since Sarah died. Have you? Yeah, probably. He was quiet for a moment. It's easier than letting them in. Safer. Safer for who? For them. I'm not... He struggled for words. I'm not good at this anymore. Being around people, letting them see me. I used to be. But after Sarah, I just couldn't. Sienna finally looked at him. What happened to her? Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. Logan's voice was flat, factual. He'd said it so many times it didn't even hurt anymore. Just existed. She was driving home from her sister's place. Emma was with me. Sarah called to say goodnight. 20 minutes later, the hospital called to say she was gone. That's brutal. Yeah. And you blamed yourself. It wasn't a question. Logan looked at her sharply. How did you... Because that's what people like you do. Sienna's voice was gentle. You take responsibility for everything, even things you can't control, especially things you can't control. Logan's throat tightened. If I'd offered to pick her up, she'd still be gone, just on a different night, different circumstances. Sienna turned to face him fully. You can't save everyone, Logan. Sometimes bad things just happen. That's a shit philosophy. Maybe, but it's true. She paused. How long did you fly after she died? 2 months? Then I had a close call. Misjudged an approach, nearly put a 737 into the side of a mountain. Logan looked down at his hands. I realized I was a danger to everyone around me, so I walked away. And spent 6 years punishing yourself. I spent 6 years keeping people safe. From what? You? Sienna shook her head. You just landed a crippled aircraft in a hurricane and saved 273 lives. You're not dangerous. You're traumatized. There's a difference. Logan wanted to argue, wanted to explain that she didn't understand, but the words wouldn't come because somewhere deep down, he knew she was right. Emma likes you, he said instead. I like her too. She wants you to stick around. And what do you want? The question hung between them. Logan realized he didn't know how to answer it. What did he want? He'd spent so long focused on survival, on making it through each day without falling apart, that he'd stopped thinking about wanting anything. I don't know, he admitted. Sienna smiled slightly. That's honest, at least. A crew member appeared beside them. Mr. Pierce, the airline's executive team is on the satellite phone. They're asking to speak with you. Logan's stomach dropped. Can it wait? They said it's urgent. Of course they did. Logan took the phone. This is Pierce. The voice on the other end was male, smooth, executive. Mr. Pierce, this is David Warren, VP of Operations for Atlantic Airways. First, let me say thank you. What you did today was extraordinary. I was just trying not to crash. Well, you succeeded, and we're grateful. Warren paused. We need to discuss next steps. The FAA is launching an investigation. The NTSB will want to interview you. And frankly, the media attention is already overwhelming. We'd like to bring you and your daughter to Reykjavik tonight, put you up in a hotel, arrange proper counsel. I don't need counsel. Mr. Pierce, with all due respect, you're about to become the most famous person in aviation. You need protection, guidance, someone to manage the narrative. I'm not interested in narratives. Then what are you interested in? Warren's voice sharpened slightly. Because right now, Atlantic Airways needs this story to go a certain way. We need you to be the hero who saved the day, not the liability who walked away from flying 6 years ago after a near-fatal incident. Logan's blood went cold. How do you know about that? We ran your background, standard procedure. Warren's tone was apologetic but firm. Look, we're on your side, but you need to work with us, do the interviews, smile for the cameras. Let us turn this into something positive. Or what? Or the story becomes about why you left flying in the first place. And trust me, that's not a story you want told. The threat was barely veiled. Logan's hand tightened on the phone. Are you blackmailing me? I'm protecting our mutual interests. Warren paused. Take the night. Think about it. We'll have a team in Reykjavik waiting for you. Just remember, we're the only thing standing between you and a media feeding frenzy that will destroy your life. Work with us, and everyone wins. Fight us, and everyone loses. The line went dead. Logan stood there, phone in hand, fury rising in his chest. Sienna was watching him carefully. Bad news? She asked. They want to control me. Turn this into a PR opportunity. He handed the phone back to the crew member. Tell them I'm not available. They'll just keep calling. Then I'll keep not answering. Sienna touched his arm. Logan, if they're threatening you, they can't touch me. I'm a civilian. I don't work for them. But even as he said it, Logan knew it wasn't that simple. Atlantic Airways had resources, connections, the ability to shape public perception. If they wanted to destroy him, they could. And Emma would be caught in the crossfire. What are you going to do? Sienna asked. I don't know. Logan looked out at the dark water. Run, maybe. Take Emma and disappear before this gets worse. You can't run from this. It's too big. Watch me. Logan, I can't do this. His voice cracked. I can't be what they want me to be. The hero, the story. I just wanted to keep my daughter safe. That's all. And now they're going to tear my life apart, and Emma's going to see everything I tried to hide from her. Sienna was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, So tell it yourself. What? The story. Tell it before they can twist it. She pulled out her phone. I know people, journalists who actually care about truth, not ratings. Let me make some calls. Get you in front of someone who will let you speak for yourself. I don't want to speak at all. I know. But sometimes you don't get that choice. Her eyes were serious. You can let Atlantic Airways control the narrative, or you can take control yourself. Those are your options. Logan wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was wrong, but deep down, he knew she wasn't. Why are you helping me? He asked. Because Emma asked me to. Sienna smiled slightly. And because I've spent 10 years watching powerful people crush the truth to protect themselves. I'm tired of it. You barely know us. Sometimes that's enough. She held up her phone. So what's it going to be? Their story or yours? Logan looked across the deck. Emma was still sitting where he'd left her, wrapped in her blanket, watching him, waiting to see what he'd do. He thought about Sarah, about the promises he'd made to protect their daughter, about the life he'd built to keep Emma safe from the world, and realized that safety was an illusion. The world had found them anyway. Make the call, he said quietly. Sienna nodded and walked away to find better reception. Logan returned to Emma. She looked up at him with those two perceptive eyes. Did you apologize? She asked. Yeah. Good. She scooted over, making room for him on the bench. Are we in trouble? Maybe. I don't know yet. Because you saved everyone? Because saving everyone made people notice us. Logan sat beside her, pulled her close. Things are going to change now, sweetheart. People are going to want to talk to us, ask questions, maybe say things about me you won't like. Emma was quiet. Then, about why you stopped flying. Logan's breath caught. You know about that. I heard you tell Sienna, And I remember some stuff from before, when you used to come home in your uniform. Her voice was small. You looked happy then. I was. Do you think you could be happy again? If you went back? The question gutted him. Logan didn't know how to answer, didn't know if happiness was even possible anymore, or if he'd burned that option years ago. I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe you should try. Emma looked up at him. Mom would want you to try. Logan's eyes stung. He pulled Emma closer, pressed his face against her hair. When did you get so wise? I'm 7 3/4. That's almost 8. Despite everything, Logan smiled. They sat in silence while the cutter fought through the waves toward Reykjavik. Other passengers moved around the deck, some sleeping, some talking quietly, some still in shock. Harrison appeared at one point looking for Logan, but saw he was with Emma and left without speaking. An hour passed. Then 2. Sienna returned as the lights of Reykjavik appeared on the horizon. I made contact, she said. Friend of mine at the post. She's agreed to meet you tomorrow. Off the record first, then a formal interview if you're comfortable. Tomorrow? Logan's chest tightened. I thought we'd have more time. We don't. Atlantic Airways is already spinning this. They've got a press conference scheduled for 8 a.m. Reykjavik time. Sienna showed him her phone. The airline's official statement was already trending. Heroic pilot saves hundreds. Swift action by airline crew prevents disaster. No mention of Logan by name. No mention that he wasn't their employee. Just corporate damage control. Bastards, Logan muttered. Yeah. So, if you want your side heard, it needs to be tonight. Sienna put the phone away. My friend can meet us at the hotel. 2 hours. Just you and her. No cameras unless you want them. Logan looked at Emma. She'd fallen asleep against his shoulder, exhausted beyond words. He thought about waking up tomorrow to find his name and face plastered across every news outlet. Thought about Emma seeing it, learning about his past from strangers instead of from him. Okay, he said quietly. Set it up. Sienna nodded and walked away again. The cutter pulled into Reykjavik harbor just after midnight. Emergency vehicles lined the dock, lights flashing. News crews had already assembled behind police barriers. When the first passengers disembarked, cameras erupted in flashes. Logan pulled Emma's hood up, shielded her face. They stayed back while others went first. Waited until the crowd thinned. A Coast Guard officer approached. Mr. Pierce, we have a vehicle waiting. Back entrance. Avoid the press. Thank you. They followed the officer through the ship's interior, down a gangway that opened onto a service dock. A black SUV waited, engine running. Sienna was already inside. Logan climbed in with Emma. The door closed. They pulled away before the press noticed. The hotel was upscale, modern, the kind of place Logan couldn't normally afford. The airline must have arranged it, probably already calculating how much his cooperation was worth. The front desk had their keys waiting. 2 adjoining rooms. Logan carried Emma to the first room, laid her on the bed still fully clothed. She didn't wake. He pulled the blanket over her, kissed her forehead. When he returned to the sitting area, Sienna was on her phone. My friend will be here in 90 minutes, she said. That gives you time to shower, maybe eat something. Logan realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten. His hands were still shaking slightly. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard now. You should rest too, he said. I will. After. Sienna looked at him carefully. You doing okay? No, but I will be. Good answer. She stood. I'm in the next room if you need anything. Try to sleep a little. You look like hell. Thanks. She smiled slightly. You're welcome. After she left, Logan stood in the empty room, listening to the silence. No engines, no alarms, no hydraulic failures threatening to kill everyone. Just quiet. It should have been peaceful. Instead, it felt wrong. He walked to the window, looked out at Reykjavik stretching below, lights reflecting off wet streets. Somewhere out there, the story was already being written. His face would be on the news tomorrow. His past would be dissected. Emma would see all of it, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Logan pulled out his phone, stared at Sarah's contact. He'd never deleted it, couldn't bring himself to. Sometimes late at night he'd scroll to her name, imagine calling, imagine hearing her voice. He typed a message he'd never send. I flew again today. Saved some lives. Scared our daughter half to death. Don't know what happens next. Wish you were here to tell me. He deleted it without saving. Then he went to take a shower before the journalist arrived. The journalist arrived exactly 90 minutes later. Logan heard the knock while he was checking on Emma for the third time. She was still asleep, curled around the stuffed rabbit she'd somehow managed to keep with her through everything. He pulled the door between their rooms mostly closed, leaving it cracked just enough to hear if she woke. Sienna was already at the door. She opened it to reveal a woman in her 40s, sharp-eyed, wearing a worn leather jacket that suggested she'd seen a lot of places that weren't safe. She carried a messenger bag and moved with the same quiet confidence Sienna had. "Rachel Winters," the woman said, extending her hand to Logan. "Thank you for seeing me." Logan Pierce. His grip was firm but brief. "Sienna said you're trustworthy." "Sienna's been in enough war zones with me to know better if I wasn't." Rachel glanced around the hotel room. "Can we sit?" They settled at the small table near the window. Rachel pulled a digital recorder from her bag, set it on the table but didn't turn it on yet. "Here's how this works," she said. "Everything we discuss now is off the record. Just conversation. You can say anything, ask anything, change your mind about talking to me at all. If we decide to move forward with an actual interview, I'll turn this on and we start fresh. Fair?" Logan nodded. "Fair. Good." Rachel leaned back. "I've been covering aviation incidents for 15 years. I know what Atlantic Airways is doing, I know what they'll try to make you into, and I know you probably don't want any of this." "You're right, I don't." "So why agree to talk?" Logan glanced at the door to Emma's room. "Because my daughter deserves to hear the truth from me before she hears lies from everyone else." Rachel's expression softened slightly. "She's 7, Sienna said. 7 3/4. She'll correct you if you get it wrong." "Smart kid." "Too smart." Logan's voice was rough. "She's already figured out more than I wanted her to know." Rachel was quiet for a moment, studying him. "You stopped flying 6 years ago. Want to tell me why?" "Not particularly." "Atlantic Airways is going to tell that story whether you do or not. Better it comes from you." Logan's jaw tightened. He looked at Sienna, who was sitting on the couch nearby. She gave him a slight nod. He took a breath. "I had a close call. Misjudged an approach during a night landing. Weather was bad, I was exhausted, and I nearly put a 737 full of passengers into a mountain." The words came out flat, clinical. "I pulled up at the last second. Nobody was hurt. The airline classified it as pilot error, gave me a 3-month suspension, mandatory counseling. I never went back." "Why not?" "Because my wife had just died. Because I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, could barely function." Logan's hands clenched on the table. "I realized I was a danger to everyone around me, so I walked away." "That must have been hard." "Walking away was easy. Living with it was the hard part." Rachel made a note on her phone. "What did you do instead?" "Construction, security work, whatever paid the bills and let me be home for Emma." Logan looked down. "I told myself it was better this way, safer, that Emma needed a father who was present, not one who was flying all the time." "But you weren't present," Sienna said quietly from the couch. "Not really." Logan's head snapped toward her. "What? You were there physically, but you checked out emotionally." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Emma told me. She said you stopped being fun, stopped being you." The words stung because they were true. Logan had been so focused on not being the broken pilot that he'd forgotten how to be anything else. "She said that?" "Not in those words, but yeah." Sienna met his eyes. "She's been trying to reach you for 3 years, Logan. Today was the first time she felt like she got you back." Logan's chest constricted. "Because I almost killed us both. Because you became the person you used to be. The one who could handle impossible situations. The one who didn't give up." Sienna leaned forward. "That's the dad she remembers. That's the dad she needs." Rachel was watching this exchange with interest. "Sounds like flying isn't just what you did. It's who you are." "Was," Logan corrected. "Past tense." "Is," Rachel said. "Present tense. You don't lose something like that just because you walk away from it. It stays in your bones." Logan didn't have an answer for that. Rachel shifted in her seat. "Let me ask you something else. When you were in that cockpit today, fighting to save that plane. What were you thinking about? Emma, keeping her alive. Just her? Logan hesitated. All of them. Every person on that plane. I kept thinking about their families, the people waiting for them to land, what it would mean if I failed. That's what makes a good pilot, Rachel said. Not the technical skill, the weight of responsibility. You carried 273 lives tonight, and you didn't drop a single one. That matters. I got lucky. You got skilled. Rachel's voice was sharp. Don't diminish what you did. Atlantic Airways wants to spin this as their triumph. Training, procedures, corporate excellence. But the truth is, you saved those people. Not them. You. Logan looked away. The praise felt wrong, undeserved. I'm going to write this story either way, Rachel continued. I can write it without your input. Use public records, interview other passengers, piece together what happened. Or you can tell me yourself. Give me the real story. The one that includes why you stopped flying and why you came back. And what do I get out of it? The truth. In your own words. Before Atlantic Airways buries it under corporate talking points. Rachel paused. And maybe a chance to figure out what comes next. What's that supposed to mean? It means you can't go back to construction work and overnight security shifts. Not after this. The world knows who you are now. The only question is whether you let them define you or whether you define yourself. Sienna stood. I'm going to make coffee. Give you two some space. She disappeared into the small kitchenette. Logan could hear water running, the coffee maker starting up. Rachel leaned forward. Off the record, really off the record. I think you want to fly again. I think today reminded you of who you used to be. And I think you're terrified that if you admit it, you'll be letting Emma down somehow. Logan's throat tightened. She needs stability, not a father who's gone half the time. She needs you to be whole. And you're not. Not doing work you hate just to punish yourself for surviving when Sarah didn't. The accuracy of it hit like a physical blow. Logan stood abruptly. You don't know anything about my wife. You're right, I don't. Rachel didn't flinch. But I know guilt. I know what it looks like when someone builds their entire life around it. And I know it never works. Logan turned away, stared out the window at Reykjavik's lights. His hands were shaking again. Not from exhaustion this time. From anger. From fear. From the sudden, overwhelming sensation that everything he'd built over 6 years was collapsing and he didn't know how to stop it. I can't do this, he said quietly. Yes, you can. No, I can't. Logan's voice cracked. You want me to go on record about the worst night of my life? About almost killing people because I was too broken to fly? About walking away from the only thing I was ever good at? And then what? Smile for the cameras? Pretend it all worked out? I want you to tell the truth, Rachel said. That's all. The rest will figure itself out. The truth is I'm a coward. I ran away because I was scared, and I've been running ever since. The truth is you're human. You made a mistake. You recognized it, and you walked away before it got worse. Rachel stood, moved to stand beside him. That's not cowardice. That's responsibility. But staying away after you've proven you're ready to come back? That's just fear. Logan closed his eyes. What if I fail again? Then you fail. But at least you'll fail trying instead of hiding. Sienna returned with 3 mugs of coffee. She handed one to Logan without comment. He took it, wrapped his hands around the warmth. They stood in silence for a long moment. Finally, Logan said, Turn on the recorder. Rachel's eyebrows went up. You're sure? No, but do it anyway. She returned to the table, pressed the button on the recorder. A small red light appeared. This is Rachel Winters interviewing Logan Pierce regarding Atlantic Airways Flight 447, recorded in Reykjavik, Iceland. She looked at Logan. Start wherever you want. Logan sat down, took a breath. My name is Logan Pierce. I'm 32 years old. I've been a pilot for 12 years, though I haven't flown professionally in 6. Tonight I landed a Boeing 777 with failing hydraulics in a hurricane because there was nobody else who could. He paused. And I'm terrified of what happens next. Why terrified? Rachel's voice was gentle now. But because I spent 6 years trying to forget who I used to be. And tonight proved I can't. Logan's hands tightened around the mug. When I walked into that cockpit, something just clicked. All the training came back, all the instincts. I wasn't thinking about whether I could do it. I just did it. That sounds like a good thing. It is. And it isn't. Logan struggled for words. Because now I know I could go back. And that means choosing not to becomes a choice, not just something that happened. What made you stop flying in the first place? Logan told her. All of it. The night approach, the mountain, the alarm screaming. The moment he realized he was going to crash, and there was nothing he could do except pull back on the yoke and pray. We cleared the peak by less than 50 feet, he said. I felt the wheels brush the trees. That's how close we came. What happened after you landed? Investigation, 3-month suspension, mandatory counseling that I never finished. Logan's voice was hollow. My wife had died 2 months earlier. I was barely functioning. The counselor said I had PTSD, depression, grief complicated by trauma. Recommended I take a year off, maybe more. Did you? I took forever off. Quit. Got my commercial license suspended voluntarily. Told myself it was for the best. And your daughter? Logan looked toward the closed door to Emma's room. She was 4. Old enough to remember me in uniform. Old enough to ask why I didn't wear it anymore. I told her I wanted to spend more time with her. That flying took me away too much. Was that true? Partly. But mostly I was just broken. And I didn't know how to fix it. Rachel made notes. What changed tonight? Emma. Seeing her terrified. Knowing I was the only one who could save her. Logan's voice roughened. I couldn't let her down. So I didn't think. I just moved. And it worked. It worked. Logan looked at his hands. But it shouldn't have. 6 years of not flying. 6 years of not trusting myself. I should have frozen, should have made a mistake, should have gotten us all killed. But you didn't. No, I didn't. The realization still felt unreal. I don't know what that means. It means maybe you're ready, Rachel said quietly. Logan didn't respond. The interview continued for another hour. Rachel asked about the flight, the landing, the decision to divert to the island. Logan answered as honestly as he could, though parts of it were already blurring together. Adrenaline made memories unreliable. Finally, Rachel turned off the recorder. That's enough for tonight, she said. I'll write this up, send you a draft before it publishes. You'll have final approval on anything about Emma. When will it run? Tomorrow afternoon, before Atlantic Airways can bury it. Rachel packed up her equipment. They're not going to like this story. Good. Rachel smiled slightly. You're braver than you think, Logan Pierce. After she left, Logan sat alone at the table. The coffee had gone cold. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten with the approach of dawn. Sienna emerged from the kitchenette, where she'd been giving them privacy. How do you feel? She asked. Like I just ripped open 6 years of scar tissue. Does it hurt? Yeah. Good. That means you're healing. Sienna sat across from him. You did the right thing. Logan wasn't sure he believed that. We'll see. What time is Emma's flight back to Chicago? The question caught Logan off guard. He'd almost forgotten they were supposed to continue to London, that this was supposed to be a trip to fix things between him and his daughter. We don't have one yet, he said. Everything got canceled after the emergency landing. The airline said they'd reschedule us. Are you going to go? To London? I don't know. Seems pointless now. Might be exactly what you need, Sienna said. Get away from all this. Let Emma see something beautiful. Remind both of you why you're doing any of this. Logan looked at her. You mean why I'm alive? Yeah, that. They sat in silence. Through the window, Reykjavik was waking up, cars appearing on the streets, lights coming on in buildings. What about you? Logan asked. Where do you go next? Sienna shrugged. I was supposed to be in Norway next week. Assignment for a travel magazine, but I can push it. Why would you do that? Because I think you might need someone around who isn't trying to use you for something. She met his eyes. And because Emma asked me not to leave yet. Logan's chest tightened. You don't have to stay for us. I know, but I want to. Sienna smiled slightly. Besides, I haven't had this much excitement since Kabul. Kind of missed it. You were in Kabul? 3 years. Freelance photographer covering the withdrawal. She stretched. After that, travel photography felt safe. Boring. This is the first time I've felt alive in a while. Logan understood that feeling better than he wanted to admit. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He opened it. The message was from Harrison, the young first officer. Captain Morrison is awake, asking for you. Room 304, Reykjavik General. Logan showed Sienna. I should go. Now? It's 5 in the morning. If he's awake and asking for me, it's important. Sienna stood. I'll come with you. Emma's still asleep. We can leave her a note. They took a taxi to the hospital. The streets were nearly empty. The city had that strange quiet of early morning, suspended between night and day. Reykjavik General was a modern building, all glass and steel. The night staff directed them to the 3rd floor. Room 304 was at the end of a quiet hallway. Captain Morrison was sitting up in bed, looking pale but alive. His head was bandaged. An IV ran into his arm. When Logan entered, the older man's face broke into a weak smile. Pierce, they told me what you did. Logan moved to the bedside. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. Doctors say I had a stroke mid-flight, small one, but enough to knock me out. Morrison's voice was rough. Could have been worse, a lot worse. If you hadn't been there, someone else would have stepped up. Don't. Morrison's tone sharpened. Don't diminish it. You saved my life. Everyone's lives. I remember the turbulence hitting, remember falling, then nothing until I woke up here. He paused. They told me you haven't flown in 6 years. That's right. Why not? Logan hesitated, but after the interview with Rachel, the story felt less heavy. I made a mistake, almost crashed, walked away before I could make another one. Morrison studied him. And tonight? Tonight I didn't have a choice. We always have a choice. You chose to go into that cockpit, chose to trust yourself again. Morrison shifted in the bed, wincing. I've been flying for 30 years. I've seen a lot of pilots, good ones, bad ones. The great ones are rare, and they all have one thing in common. They know when to push past fear. I wasn't pushing past fear, I was just trying not to crash. Same thing, Morrison smiled slightly. Listen, Atlantic Airways is going to offer you something, a job, probably a good one. They'll want to make this whole thing into a recruitment story. Logan's stomach tightened. I'm not interested. You should be, because you're a pilot, Pierce. It's what you are. Pretending otherwise is just lying to yourself. Morrison coughed, reached for water. Sienna handed it to him. Thank you. Who are you? Sienna Blake. I was on the flight. The photographer who kept the cabin calm. Morrison nodded. Crew told me. You're as much a hero as Pierce here. Sienna looked uncomfortable. I just did what needed doing. Exactly, just like him. Morrison turned back to Logan. Think about the offer when it comes. Don't dismiss it because you're scared. Fear is just information. It tells you something matters. What you do with that information is up to you. Logan didn't know what to say. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Captain Morrison needs rest. No more visitors until this afternoon. Logan nodded. Take care of yourself, Captain. You too, Pierce, and think about what I said. They left the hospital as the sun was fully rising over Reykjavik. The city looked different in daylight, cleaner, sharper, less forgiving. He's right, you know, Sienna said as they waited for a taxi. About what? About you being a pilot. It's not something you used to be. It's something you are. Logan didn't respond. He was too tired to argue, too tired to think about the future. All he wanted was to get back to the hotel, check on Emma, maybe sleep for a few hours before everything fell apart again. The taxi dropped them at the hotel entrance. Logan paid, then followed Sienna inside. Emma was awake as they returned, sitting on the couch in Logan's room, still in her clothes from yesterday, watching cartoons on the TV with the sound off. Where did you go? She asked. Hospital, to see the captain. Is he okay? He will be. Logan sat beside her. How are you feeling? Emma shrugged. Weird, like yesterday was a dream. I know the feeling. Are we still going to London? The question caught Logan off guard. Do you want to? I don't know. Emma picked at the stuffed rabbit's ear. Is everything going to be different now? Yeah, probably. Because you're famous? Logan's chest tightened. You saw the news? Sienna's phone was on the table. I saw the headline. Emma looked up at him. They called you a hero. I'm not a hero. I just did what I had to do. That's what heroes are, Daddy. People who do what they have to do even when they're scared. Emma's voice was serious, too serious for a 7-year-old. Mom used to say that. Logan felt tears burning behind his eyes. She did? Yeah. When you had to go fly and you didn't want to leave us, she said you were brave for doing it anyway. Logan pulled Emma close. She came willingly this time, wrapping her arms around him. I miss her, Emma whispered. Me too, sweetheart. Every day. They sat like that for a long time while Sienna quietly slipped into her own room to give them privacy. Finally, Emma pulled back. Can we still go to London, like we planned? Logan thought about it. About running away from the media circus. About giving Emma something good to remember from this nightmare trip. Yeah, he said. We can still go. Emma smiled. Really smiled. The first genuine one Logan had seen from her in months. Can Sienna come? Logan blinked. What? Can Sienna come to London with us? She said she doesn't have to be in Norway until next week, and she's fun, and I like her. Logan looked toward Sienna's door. I don't think... Please? Emma's eyes were bright. Please, Daddy? Logan sighed. I'll ask her, but if she says no, she won't. I already asked. She said it's up to you. Of course she did. Logan stood, walked to Sienna's door, knocked. She opened it almost immediately. I heard. You don't have to... I know, but I want to. Sienna smiled. If you're okay with it. Logan realized he was. More than okay. The thought of facing London alone with Emma, dealing with whatever came next without someone who understood what had happened, it felt impossible. Okay, he said. You can come. Emma cheered from the couch, and despite everything, the crash, the interview, the uncertain future, Logan felt something he hadn't felt in 6 years. Hope. They took the train to London 3 days later, not because flying felt wrong, though Emma had gripped Logan's hand white-knuckled during takeoff from Reykjavik, but because Sienna suggested they needed time. Time to decompress. Time to let the world spin without them for a while. Time to just be 3 people on a trip instead of the pilot who saved everyone, the girl who almost lost her father, and the photographer who documented it all. The article had published the morning they left Iceland. Rachel's piece was honest, unflinching, and somehow managed to make Logan sound human instead of heroic. She'd included his mistakes alongside his successes, the near crash 6 years ago, the grief, the fear, and then the moment he chose to walk back into the cockpit anyway. Atlantic Airways had responded within hours with their own press release. Carefully worded corporate language that praised Logan's actions while distancing themselves from his past. They offered him a consulting position, good money, flexible schedule, a chance to fly again on their terms. Logan had deleted the email without responding. Now, watching the English countryside blur past the train window, he felt something close to peace. Emma sat across from him, nose pressed to the glass, pointing out sheep and old stone walls to Sienna. They'd been doing that for an hour. Emma would see something, Sienna would make up an elaborate story about it, and Emma would laugh. Real laughter. The kind Logan hadn't heard from her in years. That castle is definitely haunted, Sienna was saying, gesturing at ruins on a distant hill. See how one tower is missing? A dragon bit it off in 1642. Dragons aren't real, Emma said, but she was smiling. Says who? Everyone. Everyone is boring. Sienna leaned back. I choose to believe in dragons. More interesting that way. Emma considered this. What about the sheep? Are they secretly spies? Obviously. Why else would there be so many of them? They're conducting surveillance for the queen. There's no queen anymore. It's a king now. Then they're unionizing, demanding better wages and longer grass. Emma giggled. Logan felt his chest tighten with something that might have been gratitude or relief or just the overwhelming sensation of watching his daughter be a kid again. Sienna caught his eye over Emma's head, smiled slightly. Logan smiled back. They'd spent the last 3 days in a strange limbo, walking around Reykjavik, avoiding reporters, eating too much Icelandic fish, and talking about everything except what happened on that plane. Emma had nightmares twice. Once she woke up screaming about falling, Once she woke up crying because she dreamed Logan didn't come back from the cockpit. Both times Sienna had been there, not replacing Logan, just supplementing, sitting with Emma while Logan made tea, telling quiet stories until Emma fell back asleep, being the steady presence neither of them knew they needed. The train pulled into London's St. Pancras station at dusk. The city was enormous, overwhelming, beautiful in that ancient, permanent way American cities never managed. Emma pressed against the window, eyes huge. "It's so big," she whispered. "Wait until you see Big Ben," Sienna said. "It's even bigger." They checked into a small hotel near Russell Square. Nothing fancy. Logan had found it online for half the price of the places Atlantic Airways had offered to book. 2 rooms again, adjoining, both with views of the square's trees. Emma fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from travel. Logan sat with her until her breathing evened out, then returned to the sitting area where Sienna was making tea with the room's electric kettle. "She okay?" Sienna asked. "Better than I expected." Logan accepted the mug she offered. "You're good with her. I like kids. They're honest, no pretense. Unlike adults. Unlike most adults." Sienna sat on the small couch. "You've been quiet today, more than usual." Logan wrapped his hands around the mug. "Thinking. About? Everything. The offer from Atlantic. What happens when we get back to Chicago? Whether I can actually go back to construction work after..." He gestured vaguely. "After all this? Can you?" "I don't know. Probably not." Logan took a sip of tea. It was too hot, burned his tongue slightly. "Captain Morrison said I'm a pilot, that it's what I am, not what I was. You said something similar, because it's true. But what if I can't trust myself? What if the next time I'm in a cockpit, I freeze or make a mistake or... Then you handle it. The same way you handled everything else." Sienna's voice was firm. "You keep acting like that night 6 years ago defines you, like one mistake erases everything you did before and after. But it doesn't. You're not that moment. You're every moment, including the one where you saved 273 people." Logan was quiet. Outside, London moved through its evening rhythms. Cars, pedestrians, the distant sound of a siren. "I'm scared," he admitted quietly. "I know. What if I fail again?" "Then you fail, and you get up, and you try again." Sienna set down her mug. "That's what life is, Logan. Falling and getting up. You've just been lying on the ground for 6 years, too afraid to stand." The words should have stung. Instead, they felt like permission. "Emma wants me to fly again," Logan said. "She told me yesterday. Said she likes me better when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do." "Smart kid." "She also said she wants you to stick around. After London." Sienna's expression shifted, something complicated passing across her face. "What do you want?" Logan met her eyes. "I don't know. But I know Emma's been happier the last 3 days than she has in 3 years. And I know part of that is you." "Just part? The other part is me finally showing up." Logan's voice roughened. "I've been so focused on keeping her safe that I forgot she needs more than safety. She needs a father who's actually present, who can laugh, who isn't carrying around 6 years of guilt like a shield." "You're figuring it out. Slowly. Maybe too slowly. Better slow than never." Sienna stood. "I should let you rest. Tomorrow's Big Ben Day. Emma will have questions." "She always does." Sienna moved toward her room, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing better than you realize." After she left, Logan sat alone with his tea and his thoughts. He pulled out his phone, looked at the email from Atlantic Airways again, read through the offer carefully this time instead of just deleting it. Consulting position. Part-time. Flexible schedule based in Chicago. Training new pilots. Evaluating procedures. Occasional test flights. Good salary. Full benefits. A way back into aviation that didn't require him to be gone all the time. A way back to himself that didn't mean abandoning Emma. Logan typed a response. Short, professional, asking for more details and time to consider. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Then he checked on Emma one more time before trying to sleep. The next 5 days in London were the best days Logan could remember since Sarah died. They did all the tourist things: Big Ben, the Tower, the British Museum where Emma spent 2 hours staring at Egyptian mummies and asking questions the tour guide couldn't answer. They rode the London Eye at sunset, and Emma pointed out landmarks like she'd lived there her whole life. They ate fish and chips from a place Sienna knew that served them wrapped in actual newspaper. Emma smiled constantly, asked questions constantly, held Logan's hand without him having to reach for hers first, and slowly, something in Logan began to thaw. He laughed at Sienna's terrible jokes, let himself enjoy the city instead of just enduring it, stopped checking his phone every 5 minutes to see if the media had found them. They hadn't. Rachel's article had satisfied most of the curiosity. A few outlets still wanted interviews, but Logan's silence seemed to be working. The story was already fading, replaced by newer disasters, fresher tragedies. On their last night in London, they found a small Italian restaurant near their hotel. Emma ordered spaghetti and got sauce all over her face. Sienna told stories about photographing the Northern Lights in Norway. Logan realized he was happy. Actually, genuinely happy. When had that happened? After dinner, they walked through Russell Square. The trees were lit with string lights. Couples sat on benches. A street performer played violin near the fountain. Emma ran ahead, chasing pigeons, laughing when they scattered. "She's a different kid than she was a week ago," Sienna said. "I know." Logan watched his daughter spin in circles, arms out. "I didn't realize how much I'd lost her until I got her back." "You didn't lose her. She was just waiting for you to find yourself." Logan looked at Sienna, really looked. "Why are you helping us?" "I told you, I like you both." "It's more than that." Sienna was quiet for a moment. "I spent 10 years photographing other people's pain, documenting suffering, making a career out of showing the world how broken things are." Her voice was soft. "And then I got on a plane that almost crashed, and I met a little girl who needed someone to tell her everything would be okay. For once, I could actually help instead of just watching." "You did more than help. So did you. You just don't see it yet." Sienna touched his arm briefly. "You gave Emma her father back. That's everything." Emma ran back to them, breathless. "Can we come back here? To London?" "Maybe," Logan said. "Someday." With Sienna? Logan glanced at Sienna. She was watching him with that patient expression that said the choice was his. "If she wants to," he said carefully. "I want to," Sienna said. "But we should probably get you two home first." They flew back to Chicago 2 days later. Emma was nervous during boarding, gripped Logan's hand tight. But once they were in the air, cruising over the Atlantic, she relaxed, even fell asleep against the window. Sienna sat beside Logan this time. They didn't talk much, just sat in comfortable silence while the engines droned and the hours passed. Somewhere over Greenland, Sienna said, "What are you going to do about the Atlantic offer? I asked for a meeting next week to discuss details." "You're considering it." "Yeah, I am." Logan looked at Emma, still sleeping. "I can't go back to what I was doing before, construction work, overnight shifts. I was just surviving, not living. And flying makes you feel alive." "It does, or it did. I don't know if it still will." Logan exhaled slowly. "But I think I need to find out." "Emma will be okay with it. She wants you to be happy." "I know. That's what scares me." Logan's voice dropped. "What if I get happy again and something goes wrong? What if I lose it all over again?" "Then you lose it, and you survive, like you did before." Sienna met his eyes. "You can't live your whole life trying to avoid pain, Logan. That's not living. That's just existing." Logan knew she was right, had known it for a while now. The question was whether he was brave enough to act on it. They landed at O'Hare just after noon. Chicago looked gray and industrial after London's ancient beauty, but it felt like home. Emma pressed her face to the window as they taxied, pointing out familiar landmarks. "There's the skyline. There's the lake. We're really home." Logan felt his chest tighten. Home. Yes, but different somehow. Like the city was the same, but he'd changed enough that it looked new. They collected their bags, made it through customs, emerged into the arrivals area where Emma's Aunt Rachel was waiting, Sarah's sister, who'd been watching their apartment while they were gone. Rachel hugged Emma tight, then looked at Logan with red-rimmed eyes. "I saw the news. I thought, I thought I'd lost you both. We're okay, Logan said. We made it. I can see that. Rachel's gaze shifted to Sienna. And you are? Sienna Blake. I was on the flight just making sure these two got home safe. Rachel studied her for a moment, then smiled slightly. Thank you for whatever you did. Emma texted me from Iceland, said you were her hero. Sienna looked embarrassed. I just sat with her. Sometimes that's exactly what people need. They said goodbye to Rachel in the parking garage. Emma hugged her aunt, promised to call tomorrow, climbed into Logan's beat-up Honda Civic that suddenly felt too small and too shabby after everything they'd been through. Sienna stood beside her rental car, keys in hand. So, she said, this is where we part ways. Emma's face fell. You're leaving? I have to get back to New York, work stuff. Sienna crouched down to Emma's level. But I'll visit, I promise. And you can call me anytime. Your dad has my number. Every day? If you want. Emma threw her arms around Sienna's neck. Thank you for not leaving when I was scared. Thank you for being brave when I needed you to be. Sienna hugged her back, then stood. Logan walked her to her car. They stood in the gray parking garage light, surrounded by the smell of exhaust and concrete. I meant what I said, Sienna told him. About visiting. I'd like to see how this turns out. How what turns out? You, Emma. This whole thing where you figure out how to be happy again. She smiled. I'm invested now. Want to see the ending? What if there's no happy ending? Then I want to see how you handle it. Either way, I'm interested. Logan realized he didn't want her to leave. Didn't want to go back to the apartment where everything would remind him of who he used to be before Iceland, before the crash, before he remembered what it felt like to be alive. Stay, he heard himself say. Just for tonight. We could have dinner, talk, I don't know. I don't want to do this alone yet. Sienna looked at him for a long moment. Okay. They had dinner at a diner near Logan's apartment. Nothing fancy, just burgers and fries and milkshakes that Emma got all over herself. Sienna told more stories about her travels. Emma asked if she could be a photographer when she grew up. Logan watched them interact and felt something shift in his chest. This could be his life, if he was brave enough to reach for it. After dinner, they walked Emma back to the apartment. She fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from travel and emotion. Logan and Sienna sat on the small balcony looking out at Chicago's lights. I have the meeting with Atlantic on Tuesday, Logan said. They want to discuss the consulting position, maybe some test flights. Are you going to take it? I think so. If the terms are right, if they'll let me structure it around Emma's schedule. Logan paused. I talked to a therapist in London while you and Emma were at the museum, found someone who specializes in aviation trauma, made an appointment for next week. Sienna looked surprised. That's good. I can't keep pretending I'm fine. Emma deserves better than that. Logan's voice was rough. She deserves a father who's actually present, not just physically there, but emotionally available. And I can't be that person if I'm still carrying around 6 years of guilt and fear. That's brave. It's necessary. There's a difference. Sometimes they're the same thing. Sienna was quiet for a moment. What about us? The question hung in the air. Logan knew what she was asking, knew she deserved an honest answer. I don't know, he said carefully. I like you. Emma loves you, but I'm not ready for anything. Not yet. I'm barely ready to be a functional human again. I know, and that's okay. Sienna smiled. I'm not asking you to be ready. I'm just asking if there's a possibility, someday. Logan thought about it, about what it would mean to let someone in again, to risk caring about someone the way he'd cared about Sarah, to open himself up to the possibility of loss. It terrified him. But for the first time in 6 years, the terror didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a door. Yeah, he said quietly. There's a possibility. Sienna reached out, took his hand. They sat like that for a while, not talking, just being. Eventually, she said, I should go. Early flight back to New York tomorrow. Okay. She stood, but didn't let go of his hand immediately. Call me, after your meeting with Atlantic. I want to know how it goes. I will. And Logan? She squeezed his hand. Don't be scared. You're ready for this. You just don't know it yet. After she left, Logan sat alone on the balcony for a long time, thinking about the meeting, about flying again, about the future that suddenly felt possible instead of predetermined. The next few months moved faster than Logan expected. The meeting with Atlantic went well. They offered him exactly what he needed: part-time consulting work, flexible hours, occasional test flights to evaluate new procedures. He could work from Chicago, could be home for Emma every night, could ease back into aviation without sacrificing the life he'd built. He accepted. The therapy helped. Slowly, painfully, but it helped. His therapist, Dr. Martinez, didn't let him hide behind explanations or excuses. Made him face the guilt, the fear, the grief he'd been carrying. Made him acknowledge that surviving Sarah's death didn't make him guilty. That making a mistake didn't make him irredeemable. That he was allowed to move forward. Emma thrived. Her grades improved. She made friends at school, started talking about the future in ways that didn't sound like she was just trying to survive until tomorrow. She called Sienna every week, sometimes more. Sienna visited twice. Once in October for Emma's birthday. Once in December for Christmas. Both times felt natural, easy, like she'd always been part of their lives. In January, Atlantic offered Logan his first real flight assignment, not a test flight, a charter run from Chicago to Los Angeles. Small aircraft, 8 passengers, simple route. His hand shook when he read the email. He called Sienna. "They want me to fly," he said. "Actually fly, not just consult, not just evaluate. They want me in the cockpit." "Are you going to do it?" Her voice was steady, supportive. "I don't know. What if I freeze? What if—" "Logan." She cut him off gently. "What if you don't?" He took the assignment. The night before the flight, Emma found him sitting in the kitchen, staring at his old pilot's logbook. He'd pulled it out of storage, dusted it off. The pages were filled with entries from another life. Thousands of hours, hundreds of flights. "Are you scared?" Emma asked. Logan looked at his daughter. She was 8 now, growing so fast. "Yeah, I am." "It's okay to be scared." "I know. But you're doing it anyway. That's what brave is." Emma climbed into his lap, something she rarely did anymore. "Mom would be proud of you." Logan's eyes burned. "You think so?" "I know so. She told me once that you were the bravest person she knew because you did hard things even when you didn't want to." "She said that?" "Yeah, right before—" Emma's voice caught. "Right before she died. She said no matter what happened, you'd always take care of me. And you did." Logan held his daughter close, felt tears running down his face. "I'm sorry I wasn't better at it." "You were good enough. You kept trying. That's what matters." The next morning, Logan drove to the small airport outside Chicago where the charter aircraft waited. It was a Cessna Citation, sleek and white in the early sun. His co-pilot was a woman in her 50s named Stevens who'd been flying longer than Logan had been alive. "Heard about you," she said when they met. "Iceland." That was impressive. "It was necessary." "Same thing." She handed him the flight plan. "I'll take right seat. You have command. If you need me to take over, just say the word." "Thank you." They ran through pre-flight checks together. Logan's hands remembered the motions. Switch by switch, gauge by gauge. Everything exactly where it should be. The passengers boarded. Business travelers, quiet, professional. None of them knew who Logan was. To them, he was just the pilot. That felt right somehow. Logan settled into the captain's seat, adjusted the pedals, tested the controls. Stevens watched him carefully but didn't interfere. "You good?" she asked. Logan took a breath, thought about Emma, about Sienna, about Sarah, about everyone who'd believed he could do this even when he didn't believe it himself. "Yeah," he said. "I'm good." They took off into a clear January sky, and for the first time in 6 years, Logan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The flight to Los Angeles was smooth, perfect conditions, no emergencies, no drama, just flying. Logan handled the controls with a confidence that surprised him, made the standard call-outs, executed a textbook landing at LAX. When they shut down the engines, Stevens looked at him and smiled. "Welcome back," she said simply. Logan flew twice more that month, then 3 times in February. By March, he was taking regular assignments, building his hours back up, remembering what it felt like to love this work instead of fear it. Emma noticed the change, told him he seemed lighter, happier, more like the dad she remembered from before Mom died. In April, Sienna took a job in Chicago, a photography position with a magazine headquartered downtown. She claimed it was just for better opportunities, but Logan knew better. She was staying for them. He didn't mind. They started dating officially in May. Slow, careful, both of them aware of what was at stake. Emma approved immediately, had already been planning it for months apparently. "I knew you'd figure it out eventually," she told Logan. "You're just slow about feelings." He couldn't argue with that. By summer, Logan had logged over 200 hours since returning to flying. Atlantic was talking about bringing him on full-time. Better pay, better benefits. His own aircraft assignment. He was considering it. One warm evening in August, Logan stood on the tarmac at a small airfield outside Chicago. He'd just finished a charter run. Easy flight, no complications. The kind of routine work that used to bore him but now felt like a gift. Emma and Sienna were waiting by the fence, watching him secure the aircraft. Emma waved when she saw him looking. Logan waved back. He thought about the storm over the Atlantic, about the impossible landing, about the moment he thought he'd die and leave Emma alone. He thought about Sarah, about the promises he'd made and broken and finally managed to keep. He thought about the last 6 years of running from himself, and the last 6 months of learning to run toward something instead. The work of healing wasn't done. Probably never would be completely. But he was trying, actually trying. Not just surviving, but living. That was enough. Logan locked the aircraft, grabbed his flight bag, and walked toward his daughter and the woman who'd somehow become part of their family without either of them really noticing until she already was. Emma ran to meet him halfway, threw her arms around him. "How was the flight?" "Perfect." "Like always?" "Like always." Logan looked over Emma's head at Sienna. She smiled at him, and he felt something settle in his chest. Peace, maybe. Or just the absence of constant fear. Either way, he'd take it. "Come on," Emma said, pulling his hand. "Sienna made dinner. She says it's edible, but I'm skeptical." "I heard that," Sienna called. "You were supposed to." They walked together across the tarmac as the sun set behind the Chicago skyline, painting everything gold and orange and impossibly beautiful. Logan realized something he'd been too afraid to admit for a long time. He was happy. Not perfectly happy. Not without fear or doubt or the occasional nightmare about hydraulic failures and storm-tossed aircraft. But happy enough. Happy in the way that comes from choosing to keep trying even when it's hard. Happy in the way that comes from letting people in instead of pushing them away. Happy in the way that only exists on the other side of grief, when you've walked through the darkness and somehow found light again. Emma was talking about school, about a project on aviation history she wanted Logan's help with. Sienna was laughing at something, her hand finding Logan's as they walked. And Logan, for the first time in 6 years, wasn't thinking about what he'd lost. He was thinking about what he'd found. Because sometimes life doesn't give you the happy ending you planned. Sometimes it takes everything, breaks you completely, leaves you wondering if you'll ever be whole again. But sometimes, if you're brave enough to keep breathing through the pain, if you're willing to try again even when failure feels inevitable, if you let the people who care about you actually help, sometimes you find something better than what you lost. Not a replacement, not a do-over, just a different kind of happiness. The kind built on honesty instead of perfection. On trying instead of succeeding. On showing up imperfect and broken and doing the work anyway. Logan looked at his daughter, at Sienna, at the aircraft waiting for tomorrow's flight. He'd spent 6 years running from the sky because he was afraid of falling. But somewhere between that storm over the Atlantic and this quiet evening in Chicago, he'd learned something important. Falling isn't the end. It's just the moment before you decide whether to get back up. And Logan had decided. He was getting up. He was flying again. And this time, he wasn't alone.